Welcome to the Daily Thunder podcast. I am Daily Thunder beat writer Brandon Rahbar, filling in for podcast host Ryan Woods. He is still recovering from COVID, so your thoughts and prayers, thank you so much for them. I hear he is almost fully recovered, so that is good news. Also good news, I am joined by managing editor of dailythunder.com, Spenser Davis. How are you doing tonight, Spenser?
Doing great, Brandon. How are you?
You know, as good as I can be after the team I cover loses by 30 points, 136-106, the Rockets beat the Thunder. This on the heels of a blowout against the Nets as well. So James Harden's current team and James Harden's former team blow out the Thunder in back-to-back games. Spenser, we're not going to dwell on this because this game was very self-explanatory. If you watched it, the Rockets couldn't miss. I don't know what else there is to say about it. Anything else that stuck out to you before we delve into Thunder players and maybe some positives we can take from it?
Well, it's funny. You mentioned James Harden. I was watching Scott Van Pelt's show tonight, and he brought up a stat that I hadn't heard yet. The Rockets set their franchise record for three-pointers tonight with 28, which is pretty incredible that they set that record. What is it, a week, 2 weeks after trading James Harden, getting rid of Morey Ball. I thought that was pretty notable.
Yeah, what are the chances they trade away James Harden and then break the franchise record for most threes? I think they were one away from tying the all-time NBA record as well.
Yeah.
Just absolutely nuts. The Bucks set that. This Rockets team is better than advertised. As long as John Wall and Oladipo and Christian Wood are healthy, Wall and Oladipo, those are health risk, obviously, with their past. And then, of course, Boogie Cousins is as well. But if those guys stay healthy, they're a solid team. I think that they're a low-end playoff team, which is a bummer for the Thunder who own their draft pick next season. But at this point, the Thunder might be getting the Miami pick. We'll talk about that just a little bit later. Before we get to draft picks, because that's going to be fun, we're going to talk about positive stuff. Was there any Thunder players that stood out to you as far as being a positive on the night?
Shea, it's tough to say Shea was a positive. He was a minus 31, which is by far the worst on the team. But 19 points on 15 shots, didn't really play in the fourth quarter, 5 assists. I thought he was, to the eye, at least offensively, pretty well in control. Darius Bazley had a couple nice moves tonight. He's really struggled shooting the ball this year. Still just 1 for 4 from the field tonight, or 1 for 4 from 3 tonight, which is pretty par for the course for him so far this season. But 15 points, which is a good night for him. Teo Maledon, who did not have as good a night as he did last time around. I think he had 20 against the Nets, right?
24.
He's 24. Oh, yeah, that's right. Him and Shea both had 24. But scored 11 points tonight efficiently, 7 shots, made a really nice 3. Passed the ball pretty well, a couple steals. He continues to look like one of the best guards in this rookie class. So I felt like he did really well tonight.
I'm with you. I think those guys were the standouts as well, and I would include Hamidou Diallo. He went 6 for 7 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3, scored 15 points, 4 assists. He had a bunch of fouls in the first half, kind of kept him off the floor.
Fouled 2 3-point shooters gave him a couple 4-point plays. It's funny I didn't even mention Hami. Of course, he had a great night, 15 points on 7 shots. I guess I don't feel like his offensive outbursts that we've seen so far this year is real. So it's hard for me to give him credit. I don't know I feel like a lot of Thunder fans feel that way in terms of not really believing what is he at, 60% true shooting percentage so far this year. But where do you stand on Hami?
So I was the same way as you. First few games, I was like, okay, fluky. It took me a while. I would say about 10, 12 games in is when I was finally like, well, I think Hami's turned the corner. Because when you look at his play in the bubble last season, he played better. He looked better. But again, it's so hard to trust. We've been kind of conditioned, I think, to think that if a guy can't shoot threes, then his offensive production can't be for real. If he's scoring in other ways, well, yeah, he's getting there, but that's going to come down because he can't shoot. But Hami is the exception to the rule, I think, in the modern NBA. He finishes really well. He continued, at some point, he finishes so many impossible shots that you're like, I guess that's just his thing. I guess he's just a guy that can finish shots that shouldn't be finished.
It does feel like every time he makes a shot in the lane, it's almost an accident that it went in.
Yeah, it does.
It's impossible is the right word. I mean, every time, but he went 6 for 7 tonight.
Yeah.
The game was over, but still.
At some point, you're like, well, I guess that's just what he does. And that's kind of where I stand with Hami now. I think he's a legitimate off the bench, energy, effort, rebounding, attack the basket guard. It's odd. Usually those guys off the bench, they're usually a point guard. Historically for the Thunder, if they're going to have a scoring guard off the bench, it's somebody who handles the ball, whether that be a James Harden or that be an Eric Maynor or a Reggie Jackson or Raymond Felton
Schroeder.
Or obviously Dennis Schroeder. Yeah, it's usually a point guard, but Hami's just kind of a different case, and I'm starting to trust him. I would say I trust him now to come in, score 10 points efficiently, probably take a couple shots I wish he didn't take, and then probably make a couple shots that I thought had no business whatsoever going in. Yeah, and then Horford was solid. It took him 13 shots, but he scored 12 points. He was 2 of 3 from 3, 7 rebounds, only played 25 minutes. This Thunder team, it's all about the future, and there's so many young guys. So Shea has continued to be excellent all season. That's the biggest thing, is his leap this season. He looks like he can score pretty much anytime he wants to, and he's figuring out still how to set other guys up. I think he's developing really, really well, and he's becoming the guy that they hoped he could become already at 22. But to me, the big wins are, like you mentioned, Maladone, Baisley, Hami, these young guys stepping up, I think, are the wins.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, like you said, it's all about Shea, right? Like he's either going to be the best player or the second best player on the next iteration of a Thunder team that is contending. I mean, unless they strike gold twice in the lottery, which I think we're going to talk about. But Lu Dort is another guy that not super great tonight. 7 points, did make a nice 3 to kind of keep Oklahoma City close in the first quarter, and then the Rockets hit like 7 more threes, so it didn't end up mattering. But he, his progression, he also had a nice finger roll, lefty finger roll in the first half tonight. Isaiah Roby's another guy, not his best night tonight, right? But has gone from somebody who didn't really play at all as a rookie to somebody who, could maybe end up hanging around in the NBA. And, the more that you get guys like that, maybe find a diamond in the rough that can contribute, even if that's just an eventual 8th man. That's somebody that the Thunder essentially got for free. I mean, that matters. One thing that we haven't talked about yet, I mean, Poku going to the G League. I don't know if you want to hit that tonight, but I thought that was sort of interesting. And he's been so bad that it's almost anti-tanking to send him away from this team, right? Like, I think his net rating coming in tonight was 61. I mean, it's just impossibly how bad he's been offensively. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. We talked about Maladone and how well he's been playing. Then you got the other 19-year-old rookie for the Thunder, Poku. There were some expectations coming in because he was picked at 17, and the Thunder kind of used a lot of capital to move up and get him. Presti obviously liked him. I think there's disappointment from analysts and fans both, because it's kind of fun to watch Poku because you never know what you're going to get. And it's entertaining. And there's still that upside. Even though he's been bad, there's that potential. You see, like, every once in a while, that flash, you're like, ooh, that's why Presti wanted him. And you just kind of hoping you're going to see him put it together for a full game where he goes off and scores 20 points and grabs 10 rebounds and blocks 3 shots. That hasn't happened. I think he's incredibly raw. There are tools there. His body with handling the ball at his size is potentially really exciting. But to me, it makes sense. As disappointing as it is, one, from the standpoint of, we can't watch him play with the Thunder anymore. But then two, I think there's kind of this inherent, is he not as good as they thought he was because they're going to send him down to G League, so maybe we should be disappointed. I don't think that's the case. I think it's the case of, just like Daignault said, there was no summer league. There was no real training camp. There was no preseason. This is a guy that was 18 years old coming into the season. And so he's got to get some confidence. He's got to get some play time against some good competition. I think this is a good move. It's just developing. The G League, they're going to run all the same plays. The Thunder and the Blue, this is what they do. They develop the same way. They have the same system, the same plays, the same setup, all those things. So he's going to learn the Thunder culture and the Thunder playbook. And I think it's the smart move. A little disappointing, but the wise move ultimately.
It certainly makes, the NBA side of it less entertaining. I mean, I think we're going to end up with a lot more Justin Jackson than we otherwise would have, which that is what it is. I think he made a three tonight. He was all right. With how bad he's been offensively, I almost think that they had to do it. Now, defensively, he's been better than I think anybody really anticipated, right? Like he's had several blocks, several games with multiple blocks. Didn't he force a Chris Paul airball the other night against the Suns, or maybe blocked a shot?
He did. He forced an airball.
But generally speaking, he doesn't really look like he totally understands what he's supposed to do just within the flow of the game. And so, I think going down to the G League will help. Now, there's a bunch of guys in the G League that are massive and fighting for their life in this league, and I'm not sure that he's going to necessarily look like one of the best players in the G League either. I think this whole year is going to end up being almost sort of a wash. I hope they have plenty of weight rooms down in Orlando for him to try to get a little bit bigger. We'll see how he develops. I'm not quite as optimistic about his outlook as I was on draft night.
The dude is just so young and so raw. I still have hope for him. Am I penciling him in next to Shea and Dort and Cade Cunningham and Evan Mobley? No.
All four?
Right. But I hope that we see him reach his potential or what we think it could be. Now, speaking of draft picks, the Cade Cunninghams and Evan Mobleys, I know that the incoming class is stacked. Cade and Mobley and Jalen Suggs and Jalen Green and Kuminga. Tonight, the Hornets beat the Heat. That's a double win because we want the Hornets to get wins. We want the Heat to get losses. The Cavs won. That was a bummer. The Wolves lost, but at least the Cavs get a win. The Bulls get a win. The Kings get a win. So as far as the Thunder's draft picks go, tonight was a good night. Not a good night on the scoreboard, but a good night for the 2021 draft. Do you think the Thunder ultimately end up with a bottom three record?
Well, I mean, I'm a big believer in net rating in terms of predicting future results, right? They're 10th right now, or 10th worst record in the NBA right now. Who's definitely worse than the Thunder? I think Minnesota and Detroit are probably definitely worse than the Thunder. And so at that point, you're talking about, well, can the Thunder get to be third worst? The answer is probably yes. The only other contender, as I look at the standings right now for that, is Washington, who is 4-12 and have been terrible, and they really should be 3-13 if not for the Russell Westbrook heroics from last night. I mean, I don't know. There's just not a whole lot of margin for error, for lack of a better phrase, in terms of getting the Thunder into that third worst record spot. But that is key, getting one of those three worst spots. And obviously, having the worst record, if you're just talking about the draft, would be ideal because then you're guaranteed a top 5 pick no matter what. Whereas if you're third, I think you could end up with the 7th pick, which would obviously not be ideal. It looks like you mentioned the 5 guys, you named them. It looks like it's a 5-player draft. There may be other guys that emerge, but for right now, at least, it's Cunningham, Suggs, Mobley, Kuminga, and Green in some sort of order. And then it's a pretty big drop off after that, I think. I mean, I'm not even sure I'm not sure that there's a consensus 6th right now. I believe Sam Vecini had Corey Kispert in either his 6th or 7th spot in his most recent mock draft podcast with Matt Penny. And no disrespect to Corey Kispert, but that's not a superstar. Vecini recognizes that as well. Yeah, I mean, I think you really want to get a top 5 pick in this draft. But the good news is, if the Thunder do end up at 7, they could pretty easily trade into the top 5 and get one of those players. So I am excited to see this G League Ignite situation. When the G League starts here in a few days, get to start seeing Jalen Green and Jonathan Kuminga on film. I think it'll be really interesting.
Those top 5 guys, they say would all go number 1 in the 2020 draft. That's how strong the top 5 are, and then how far it is after the top 5. And I think the Thunder want to do everything they can to get a top 5 pick in this draft to pair up with Shea. Sure, they would love Cade Cunningham the most, and maybe Mobley and Suggs, but you'd be happy with any of those 5s. But it's very important to get one of those guys. As far as this upcoming schedule, it's big with these draft picks because you got the Rockets again, And then you got the Timberwolves twice in a row. And we talked about maybe the Timberwolves are in competition for worst record in the NBA. A lot of this will depend on if they get Karl Anthony Towns back by the time that the Thunder had the doubleheader with them. If the Thunder are going up against the Wolves with Cat, I think that the Thunder, lose one or both of those. If the Wolves don't have Cat, I could see the Thunder taking both of those games. And honestly, that would be a big swing in the other direction as far as the standings go. Are you actively rooting for the Thunder to lose to the Wolves, or what's your stance on that? This is much debated as far as tank, compete, actively root for wins or actively root for losses. What's your stance?
Man, it's so funny. This year, more than any other year that I've watched basketball, when I watch the Thunder, I'm not even looking at the score very often. And that may be a cop-out answer, but I just am excited to watch Shea and when he was here, Poku, and like see Baisley trying to make strides and Dort doing cool stuff. I feel like I'm not necessarily actively rooting for or against a certain outcome. I just want to see, like, if Shea, I guess I don't. If I'm going to give you an answer to the question, I don't really want the Thunder to win. But if Shea is going to hit a game winner or take over a fourth quarter, cool, great, because that's to me that's almost better than a loss in terms of building for the future. Right. But if Al Horford and George Hill and Mike Muscala are going to lead the Thunder to a win over the Timberwolves, I'm not interested in that at all.
Absolutely perfect answer. So there you go. There you have it. So Ryan should be back for Wednesday night's game against the Rockets, the doubleheader. Hopefully he is back. But if not, hey, maybe it'll be me. Maybe it'll be Spenser. Maybe it'll be Cray or Olivia. You never know. It's a potpourri of hosts here and guests on the Daily Thunder podcast. Spenser, thank you so much, man, for joining us tonight.
Of course, anytime.
Absolutely. And thank you for listening to the Daily Thunder podcast.